Welcome to the BJ Loot Manager walkthrough. We're going to be going through a few different things today, and I'll be splitting this video up into sections. First section, we're going to make sure that you have everything you need in order to get started. The first thing you'll need is ISX SQLite. Now this is an open source project that Amadeus has placed on his forums at isxgames.com. You can find it under the utility subforum near the bottom. I have pre-compiled a version for you for those of you who don't know how to do any of that, and it is available on my patcher. So first, let's make sure that we relay in our Innerspace console to all of our sessions. So relay all extension ISX SQLite. And we'll receive confirmation there. And then we're going to want to start up the Loot Manager system. All BJ Loot Manager LM. And this is going to load, and you'll get a confirmation that the Loot Manager has been open. ISX SQLite will tell you that I have it set to quiet mode, so it's not going to bug us too much. And one of the options I have selected is it's going to turn off Ogrebot accepting of loot, and I'll explain why that happens a little bit later. First thing, I've tried to design this program to help you teach your bots what items you want them to need, greed, and decline on. Now, that doesn't mean that for our group options in EverQuest 2 that need before greed is the only looting method that's supported. I've designed this to support leader only looting and need before greed. I'm just using the terms need, greed, and decline for the sense of what is you want the bots to do. So you can have it set up however you like. You can have leader only, or you can have need before greed. Now, need before greed, if you have it set up this way, the bots will actually select for you need, greed, or decline. If you have it set up to leader only looting, the bots are going to tell you. Now, I use Ogre IRC, so they will tell me in IRC. If you don't, I've designed this nifty little window here that you can activate, and I'll show you how in a few minutes. They will tell you their loot decisions, whether they want the item, they need the item, or they want to decline the item. So whichever way you want. And then for leader only, you'd have to then manually assign the loot out. Okay, so I'm going to change mine right now to need before greed and hit apply. Okay, so we've got it running. We know that Loot Manager is running on all the sessions. It automatically hides by default because it is a large screen, and I know your screen space is precious to you. So we need to make an MCP button. Now you go to any empty one. I already had one set up, and you can select the command bj_loot_manager_toggle UI. And when you do that, it's going to change the description. It says toggles the BJ Loot Manager main UI. There's no parameters, and you can hit apply. And now with our button, we can go ahead and load up our main UI. Now, there's three different tabs at the top: Item Database, Loot Rules Database, and Options. I'm going to go through Item Database and Loot Rules Database a little bit later in the video. But I do want to say this, that the Item Database, which is this tab here, is actually comprised of two different databases. There's a default one that only I can write to, that I will patch out for you. And there is a custom one, which is anytime you add an item to the database, you're actually adding it to the custom database that's stored on your local computer. I will be patching my database periodically. Every time I do a patch, it will just update any items that I've come across, but I didn't want to override your items, so that's why there's two different ones. When you get an item and the loot window appears, it's going to check your custom database first. If the item does not exist, then it will move into and check my item database, the default one. Okay, so let's head over to the Options tab. And you have, first thing you should see is the category options. Now I've provided some options here for you already as default. You can make whatever you want. If all you have to do is type in, so my new category, And to save on screen space, I did not add a button. You just push the enter button and it will add it to your list box. Also, when it adds it to the list box, it automatically saves to the category save file. Okay, now categories are shared by everybody on that computer. It's not on a character per character basis. And if you want to remove them, you just simply left click and then right click, and it will remove it and it will save those settings again. Now let's talk about the character specific. So every time you load up on a particular character, these settings are going to be saved for you. First one we have is at the top here is new item, show add item to database window. And when that's checked, that's going to, when you open the loot window and you have a new item that it scans through and it doesn't find in the database, it's going to pop up this big window here and it'll have the item database page already selected for you. And it's going to be ready for you to add that item into the database. I only usually have this checked on my tank. The other ones, because they all share the same item database, they don't need to have that popped up. As soon as you add the item on your tank or whoever it is you're adding items on, it's automatically given access to all the other characters. Master Looter. Now this one's a little bit tricky, and it's meant to make things a little bit easier for those items that you don't really need. I run it again just on my tank, and this is almost an override. So it's going to wait, if it's a Master Looter, for a time that you have set. Default is 2 seconds. For everybody to send out their options. So the bots are going to, the loot window is going to pop up. The bots are going to automatically scan the loot window for the items, and it's going to check the database and then check the loot rules database after that. And if there are loot rules available, they will return by sending out to everybody whether they're going to need, greed, or decline. Now, the Master Looter, like I said, is delayed in making his decision, and the reason for that is it's going to see, does anybody need the item still? And but the bots are going to need based on the loot rules you're going to create later on. If nobody needs the item and it's just greed or decline rules, the Master Looter will ignore the loot rules and automatically need the item, so they win it. This gets it so that that trash loot that, you know, there's lots of it where nobody really needs the item, it's not an upgrade for any of your character, or it's just a really bad item, at least it gets looted on the tank so that you can transmute it or do whatever you want to do afterwards. It's not getting split up all over the place. Loot rules. Now these are for unknown items, so items that are not in your item database. All of my other bots, not my tank, are set for loot rule decline unknown items, so that way if the new item comes up and the bot does not know because it is not in the item database, they're automatically going to decline it. And that's more useful for your need before greed EQ2 option, so that way you're not going to worry about somebody accidentally greeding or needing it and then all your stuff gets all messed up. And this also gives you time to add it on your tank, which is why I don't have it selected on my tank. Now the need unknown items right here and the greed unknown items, I put those in there just as overrides for those times when you just want to fly through the zone. You don't need the window popping up, right? I'm thinking also that would be useful for if you use my QuestBot. A little plug there for QuestBot. That way you can just let it automatically run through the zones and not worry if there's an item that pops up that is not in your database. Now the broadcast options. If you have Ogre IRC and you have it set up properly, you can have all of your characters broadcast into IRC if they're going to need on an item, if they're going to greed on an item, or if they're going to decline. Okay, now that's just, it doesn't use any of the information in the IRC window. It's mostly just a visual for you. So you can turn that on and off as you see fit. And for those people who don't have Ogre IRC working, I've created that little window I told you about over here. That's going to do the exact same thing. They'll need greed or decline, and you can toggle that window on and off. Typically I do play with it off because I use Ogre IRC, as you can see down here. The last one, OgreBot enable looting. Now by default, as soon as you load the manager, it will turn off, and here I'll do this so you can see. It will turn off right here, the loot corpses and chests. And the reason for that is if you have need before greed as your EQ2 looting option, you will get one window for one person looting, and OgreBot will natively wait for the loot window to be taken care of before it loots the next item. Now if you have multiple people looting, you get multiple windows, and that's Loot Manager is not going to like that. It wants to have one window open at a time. So it disables it on everybody, and then you can turn it back on by using this option here on your tank or wherever it is you want to be looting. You only want to have one looter. And also, if you noticed at the top here, it turned off OgreBot accepting loot, and it's just turning off the settings for automatically greeting or needing on an item. And again, that's so that way this can take care of that for you. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back in just a second for you guys. I'm going to go kill a mob and get a chest in front of me so I can show you what happens when you get items. Okay, be back in a sec. Okay, welcome back. I forgot that I would come across a shiny before I found another loot box. So I'm going to go ahead. I did set my options for this tutorial to leader only looting, just so that we can see what happens when the item shows up. I'm going to go ahead and loot the item now. Okay, so as you can see in my console, it's telling me the information that there are people who still need the item. So it's going to go through and it's going to tell you how many items are in the loot window. In this case there was only one because it's a shiny. And then it checks, as you can see right here, it checks to see, is the item in the database? Yes, it is. So it moves on to the loot rules and says, is the item in the loot rule database? It was. And because this character is the master looter and they don't need the item, it's going to wait for the others to make their loot decisions. It's going to wait for the time that we have set on our options page, which is default 2 seconds. And then after waiting, it goes ahead and makes its decision based on what the other people told. Now in my Ogre IRC window, I had to blank out my character names obviously, but you can see that 3 of my characters don't need the item because they already have it, and the other 3 do. So as the master looter, it says that the item has not been looted by everyone who needs it, so it's selecting decline to let them win it. Okay, and then the next part is all items are ready to be looted, and then I don't need the item. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it to, actually I'll go ahead and close this, and I will open up quickly my need before greed and then let the item roll out, and you will see that the bots will select automatically what they need. There you go, it's done, and my coercer won it because the coercer was somebody who needed the item. Okay, I am going to take another quick break and I'm going to go get a chest. Hopefully it will have multiple items in it, and then you can see how it handles multiple items. Okay, welcome back again. Last time, okay, I did get a chest. Haven't opened it yet, but hopefully there will be multiple items in it. My loot options are still need before greed, so we will see how things go. Okay, there's only one item in the chest, but it is an item that is not in my database. That is actually good as well. So let's go ahead. So I have my loot window open. I'm going to right click and I'm going to examine the item. Okay, I got the block chance throwing weapon. With the examine window open, I can then go ahead, and you saw that it automatically popped up my window for me to the item database tab, and I'm going to hit the get item info, and it's going to populate all of these boxes based on the examine window. The only thing you have to do is select a category for it. So I'm going to select heroic tier 2 because I'm in a temple zone, and I'm going to add the adornment slot color. So there's 2 whites, a purple, and a cyan adornment. There we go. And that's it. That's all I have to do. And I'm going to go ahead and add the item. Now it's important to watch here for the status to change. It'll add new. It will then gather the item that is just entered into the database, and then it goes back to idle. When it's just gone back to idle, you are good to go on to your loot rules. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can either select the category you just had, and if the examine window is not open, you hit filter and it will show you all of the items that are in the expansion and category that match it. So I can scroll down and I can find Temple Rock Thor. Or if you still have the examine window open, and this is the way I just added, which should be easier, you can hit the filter button. It will ignore the start and it'll only do the item name that's in the examine window. So for this, I probably will have just my brawlers need it. So I selected need and brawlers, and everybody else I will have greed. So priests, mages, scouts, warriors, and crusaders. Okay, so they're all going to greed it. Number of times to loot. Okay, so now this is how many times should they loot an item. For most items are going to be default of 1. There are a few items though where you want them to just constantly need, and the green and blue malice shards is a good example of that. You could have them always need on them. Shinies too, if you wanted to. Or you could calculate how many shards they'd need in order to completely green gear out a character and have them do that as well. So it's a little bit of flexibility, because each time a character loots an item, it tracks it in the character database. So then I just have to hit add edit, and that's it. So now go ahead and close that, and when I reopen it, the bots make their decision, and there's that. All done. Okay, hopefully this was useful to you. If you have any questions, go ahead and find me. You can find me on IRC in hashtag BJScripts channel, or on my forums or the i6 Game forums. Okay, take care.